Welcome to Chronicles of a Pair of Bucket List Travelers. In this episode, we look at one-tank getaways. Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Teresa Lowe.
And we're the Chronicle Travelers.
Today, we are celebrating national parks and recreation. We thought we'd take you to one of the premier national parks in the country, Yosemite National Park.
And I got to say, of all the parks in this nation, this, I think, is the most premier. So much to see, so much to do. And this year, the waterfalls are absolutely spectacular.
And for you to get your best tour, start out right behind us at the Visitor Center. They'll tell you everything you need to know so that you'll be able to have a great trip here at Yosemite National Park.
When I say that I'm an interpreter, people say, well, what languages do you speak and how many languages do you speak? And it's not a question of interpreting language, it's a question of being a go-between in terms of the geographical history of the park, the geological history of the park, the cultural history of the park. And so the visitor is at one end of the bridge, the place is at the other end of the bridge, and the interpreter literally is the go-between. So I'm like the ligament that ties the bone to the muscle. Otherwise, nothing's walking, nothing's moving. So I'm a connector more than anything else. And some people focus more on the cultural resources, some folks focus on the natural resources, but what I've learned is that you have to focus on everything because all those things organically interrelate to each other. So that's essentially what I do. I basically am a storyteller. My background is classical music, is music and poetry. I majored in English Lit, my degree's in English Lit. I was in graduate school at the University of Michigan, majoring in poetry. And then before that, I was a vocational music major in classical music. So I just basically had all these disparate disciplines that I realized that I could blend together and make that part of who I am and what I do as a ranger, and that's what makes me a little bit unique. But I feel that every ranger, every interpreter is unique because they all bring their own different set of skills to the craft. It's just that mine is a little bit more out of the box, being with a background in poetry and music. So I'm a connector. That's basically what I do. And the best way to think of it is when people ask me, well, okay, that's boring, it's a connector, what do you do? Well, I facilitate astonishment. I'm an astonishment facilitator. And so when I'm telling a story or describing something to someone, and if they don't go like this, then I failed. So my job is to get that sound of breathlessness because Yosemite is a place that makes people breathless. And so I should be able to tell a story that results in that similar kind of physical feeling of just, oh my God, I never knew that. And that's what interpreters are doing their job when they're hearing from time to time, I didn't know that, and that's kind of what I do. And I live for that. That's what I get paid in. I didn't join the Park Service for money. I get paid with gas, which are really difficult. It's hard to collect those and take them to a bank and get anything back. So that's what I do, and in particular, I would say that the story that really has taken wing has been the Buffalo Soldier history in Yosemite, which I owe to Althea Roberson, an African-American woman who was a ranger here who told the story. And then before her, there was another ranger here named Kenneth Noel who told the story. But each of those rangers, once they left, the story to some degree left with them. And so what I learned from them is that if you really want a story to connect with people long term, then the story has to live outside the place where it was housed. And so with regard to African Americans, I realized that this African American history in the Sierra Nevada was a dislocation psychically, spiritually, and philosophically for African American people, because we tend not to look at the Sierra and at Yosemite as something that black folks do, to cut to the vernacular, And so what I'm trying to do, more than anything else, is create a deed of ownership of cultural ownership for my own people, so that when they come there, they feel that they're connecting with this place and that this place is a homecoming for them. And the pathway for that is through the telling of the Buffalo Soldier history. So when African Americans hear that fully a decade before the National Park Service was created, before there was any such thing as a National Park Ranger, there were African American soldiers serving in Yosemite and Sequoia in 1899, 1903, and 1904. And these soldiers built the first trail to the top of Mount Whitney, the highest mountain in the contiguous United States. That was in 1903. They built the first usable wagon road into Sequoia's giant forest, the most famous grove of giant sequoia in the world. And more work was done in 1903 under the stewardship of Charles Young, the first African-American superintendent of a national park. More work was done in 03 than all the preceding years combined. And then in 04, here in Yosemite, a trail was built near the South Fork of the Merced, and they labeled the plants in the area in both English and Latin. It was a nature trail, but it wasn't just any nature trail. It was basically the first nature trail in the entire national park system, and so they are credited with building the first museum in the entire national park system. I had to learn how to ride a horse. Yosemite has its own horse patrol school, and there was no way I could tell effectively, let alone poetically, the history of the Buffalo Soldiers without knowing how to ride a horse, because too many equestrians come here, and you can't fake skills you don't have. Yeah, so that's what's exciting about working here, is that the world comes here.
Until next time, we wish you beautiful skies for your bucket list travels.